Mr. Gray, I'll start with you. Can you explain to me why Mr. Ward shouldn't need to face a penalty when, the sort of undisputed fact is that he did hurt this boy?
First of all, that's not an undisputed fact. Even the first instance court said that the mocking in the schoolyard was not necessarily all caused by this. Secondly, no one disputes the possibility of a private law remedy. You can sue somebody if he's harmed you. But the idea of the state coming in and saying you cannot say this or it's discriminatory is dangerous. It's dangerous because it seriously limits freedom of expression. It makes it impossible to say anything good, because if you can't say something bad about somebody, then anything you say which is good, it doesn't count either. It all becomes very plastic and very repressed. In order to have freedom in our society, the state, except in the most clear and obvious cases like official secrets, should not prohibit people from speaking.
Now, Ms. Beaudoin, let me turn to you. Can you tell me, isn't this sort of a form of government censorship if the government can impose a penalty for jokes?
Well, first of all, I would like to just say, for me, it's not really the government imposing a penalty. What happened here is actually a remedy that's been given in order to protect a dignity right. So the person exercised their right in front of a specialized tribunal. And so it's not a fine. It's not like somebody confiscated somebody's assets or anything. It's not a penal law. And the damages that were imposed are actually moral damages. And their goal is to repair the harm that was done. So it's not actually...
This money was paid to Mr. Gabrielle and his mother, not to, the state, correct?
Exactly. So in this case, it's like government assisting somebody in making their right be protected. But it's not actually, for me, the government censoring anything. Otherwise, it would just be saying every time there's a case in court, it's the government coming into your contract and actually telling you what's wrong or what's right. So here, I just, I'm a bit worried about the terminology, saying that it's the government censoring and imposing fines. I'm not really in agreement with that. So
Ms. Barron, let me turn to you. Is this government action? Is this the government imposing a penalty? And if it's not a fine and it's damages, why wasn't it just a private law remedy for Mr. Gabrielle?
Yeah, I think the distinction between human rights tribunals and the government that Ms. Beaudoin has made is too fine and too cute by half. At the end of the day, it's a human rights tribunal that is imposing the fine, that is assessing the level of harm done, that is saying that this speech crossed the line and violated a public notion of dignity. It's clearly not a matter between private individuals. And so I do think that this law is expanding the state's reach into free speech and into comedy more particularly.
Mr. Gray, do you want to respond to any of that?
Yes, I think it certainly is a public law matter. The effect is a public law effect as well. Anybody who becomes a comedian will know that there are limits to what he can say. And you can imagine that in many, many societies, comedy was the one way of making fun of it. And what Mr. Ward wanted to do was puncture the balloons of so-called sacred cows in society. People who are never attacked, people who are... Political correctness says you have to be nice to them. Well, an attack on political correctness in today's world is obviously something that should be tolerated and, in fact, is a good thing.